Hey everybody, just getting prepped for the show. Hooray for our side. And if you've got something you want to upload or for us to look at while we're on the show, just put that link in the chat menu, whichever side that is, and we'll get rolling in a second. I'm just going to show you, I'm still running the spatial audio designer here for this music, so if you've got headphones on, it should be pretty cool. This right here. Let's see, it'll loop here in a second. Right channel. Right surround. Oh, get in there. Left surround. And left. And I'll turn up center here. Center. Pretty cool. And the LFE off. And the LFE on. Full. And that's this right here, this slider here, which you probably can't quite see. It's down here. And even on bad headphones, it tends to work, which is pretty cool. All right, let's get this rolling. Welcome to the show, everybody, to the Cinema Sound Compression. Hope you've been having a good week. As you can hear in my voice, I sort of have a little bit of a cold, which I'm getting over. I don't know what the deal is. It's October. Why do we have a cold situation? But we do, so oh well. You get to listen to me a little bit stuffy. Let's see. In terms of things going on, we've had some great questions come after last week's show. So we're going to cover one of the big ones here if we have time. But other than that, we're in the process of migrating the Cinema Sound website to a different DNS server and about to release the Cinema Sound education that you can purchase for yourselves without any more annual fees directly from Cinema Sound. So that's in the works. I don't think I have any more actual crazy news for you. This, other than what you already know about. I've been trying to do this article for about 6 months, maybe longer, maybe 9 months, on the Slate Digital Raven, which I use. And Adobe Audition isn't supported by the good folks at Slate Digital, which is a drag. I've been trying to get them to do it for a while, but it doesn't mean that the Slate Raven isn't useful in Adobe Audition. So I was finally able to get the camera up and look down on the screen so that you can see what's happening and how to use, even just with the most basic parameters. It, of course, supports, I believe it supports Nuendo, Cubase, Logic, Pro Tools, of course, and all those. So it's really cool. They're coming out with Audition sometime, but in the meantime, a lot of people are like, well, what, fader interface should I buy? And while Adobe Audition is Yukon compatible, which means you can use all of the Pro Tools control surfaces, which are pretty cool, some of the coolest producible studios that I've seen, in other words, a client comes in and goes, whoa, that's cool, happen to have Ravens, because you can grab 10 faders at a time and move them up and down and automate, and that's super cool. Again, unfortunately, in Audition, you can't do that. You're stuck with a single fader. But the ability to edit on a screen and the ability to wow a client should not be underestimated in the world of I want to get hired. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's a $1,000 investment, but you're going to be buying $1,000 for an artist mix console and no ability to edit. So, I mean, the faders are cool, the automated faders on an artist mix. I had one for a while. Anyway, so that article is up, that video is up. I'm kind of happy that it's there. I've been wanting to get it done for a while. So, hey, Jody. All right, so what are we going to do today? Well, there's a bunch of chapters of edit that we can talk about and just go week by week, but there, I'm just going to leave, they're kind of content dependent in the education. And I hope you've all gone through the edit volume by now and watched it all. But there's, we shot 5 videos specifically for the purpose of demonstrating the process from recording all the way to mix output. And, the edit volume probably, next to maybe the beach fix chapters where I try to fix the surf that's in all of the dialogue tracks that we recorded on that beach in Australia. The latter edit chapters are the most difficult to kind of get through because I'm just going through what has to be done to get the edit right. And that includes all the dialogue and some of the sound effects and those kinds of things. And so, to recreate that here on the show is kind of like, well, we've already talked about the basics. I've already demonstrated for you room tone, cutting, the crossfades, which crossfades to use, these kinds of things, all that stuff, the preferences. So what's left is room tone. Basically, what's left is 2 things. Multi-track room tone generation from a single recorded room tone. And then Magic Attack, where we create a much bigger sound effect out of changing the attack of a sound and letting the duration live, and then of course layering. And that all lives in the discipline of editing. So we're going to do that today. And then Jody has been asked a question on the Facebook group about if you've got a big picture and it's long and you've got lots of tracks and you have to cut it into reels, what's the process for getting that out? So if you've got it in Premiere and you've got reels, how do we deal with that? How do we export? What are the settings and what's the process? And if we have time, which I hope we do because I've set us up to do this, we're going to get to that. But again, if you have stuff that you want us to look at, questions, and you want to go, hey, I've got this issue, or I want to know how to deal with this, just upload it to, if it's just a video, you can upload it to YouTube and we can all watch it together. Or if you want me to actually look at the files, I'll bring it up here live and we'll talk about it and just talk about, what you want to see, what kind of result you want in the chat window. Just put that link in there and we'll be good. All right, without further ado, let's talk about room tone. And ambiances, really, not just room tone, but because room tones are, as we said, kind of always mono, right? We don't want stereo room tone. So if we've got an ambience or a situation even where you've recorded on set room tone for a long time, and you're like, wow, that mono room tone is really the perfect sound that I want to use for ambiances. And sometimes it is, but because it's mono, you can use a stereo widener on it and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine, but it is never really as good as a truly stereo generated ambience, which is fair enough. So we did this at Adobe Live in April, And I showed everybody how we do this. It's a very, very simple thing that we do in editing. There's no plugins involved. There's nothing like that. Just editing. So if you're in doubt and you're on set and you're like, you know, I may want to use these as ambiences, this room tone I've got in here. First of all, you got to really piss everybody off on set because you want to record at least 60 seconds of it. Because for ambiences, we want to have 60 seconds or longer. So everybody's going to get mad that you're doing 60 seconds. They have to wait twice as long. But if you really have a strong feeling you're going to be using this, then you want to be doing 60 seconds. So I'm going to record 60 seconds of ambiences, room tone here. And right now it's a little noisy here in the studio because there's a bunch of people running around doing things in the background. So you might hear some weird bogeys. But let's just jump in. I'm going to record. Let's go to the screen capture. Hello. We're going to this is just a really basic session. All right, we're going to go to the end of it over here. I'm going to see, can I use this track? Is it empty? Is it mono? Is it secret? Is it safe? No, it is not mono. We're going to make a mono track. Add mono audio track. Hello there. We're going to call this room tone, for lack of a better term. We're going to double check its input is correct. There's the stereo input. We want it to be mic 1, I believe. We're going to put it in here. Hello, yes. And then I'm just going to see, check 1, 2. That should be all right. We're going to push us into record and do 60 seconds. So everybody hang on with me. And that should do it. Let's double check we've got it. Looks like we do. Let's see, how long did this end up being? Yeah, 45 seconds. It'll do for now, yeah? All right. Undo this. Just make sure it sounds any good. I should probably route it to the correct output. It is going here. Let's turn this off. There we go. Okay, that's weird. It's got a weird oscillation in it from something. Might be one of these plugins. Okay. All right, so there's the room tone. It's mono. There's not much you can do with this mono thing. So what do? What we're going to do is add another mono audio track. Another one of these things. We're going to shift, option, click, drag it down. Now what you have here is 2 mono tracks, right? Yay, who cares? What good is that going to do? Well, not a lot, except now you just got 2 of the same thing. Whoopee. Even if I pan one left and pan one right, as I just did here, that's this, you know, pan it left and pan it right, it ain't going to fix much. We play it. Still dumb, dead, mono. Boo, hiss. But since we recorded 60 seconds of it, I'm going to go here to the arrow tool. And right about here, somewhere halfway, I'm going to cut them both. Cool. And I'm going to take the latter half of the former, the latter half of the latter, to be honest, and drag it so that it is like this. I'm going to get rid of this one. Now what I have is the first half on left and the last half on right. And because, although it's the same room tone, in the same room, with the same microphone, in the same space, it's actually sonically radically different, that we should have now created a very wide and mono-compatible, if need be, stereo ambience. That's with the exception of that wild oscillation, which I got to figure out what that is. Notice how amazingly wide that is. And if we make it mono, there it is, and back to stereo. I mean, that's super wide. And you can do the same thing, although you'd have to record 2 minutes if you wanted to do it in the surrounds, right? You cut it into quarters, your 2 minutes, and one's on left, the next quarter's on right, the next quarter's on left surround, the next quarter's on right surround, and now you've got 30 seconds of ambiances that you can loop. And 30 seconds, not the greatest, but if you really, really wanted to use it, it's a no plug-in, no degradation in sound way of getting great sound, great stereo ambiances out of room tone. So a little tip there. Super cool. Let's see. Hey, Spiro, and hey, Pedro. Yeah, awkward, strange. All right, let's see. What else we want to talk about now? Magic Attack. Let's jump into that. I'm going to use this same session. I'll just move this over here. Let's say I had a really, and we do this in the education, but it works to double it here. Let's say I had a handgun sound, and what was on screen was, say, a 9mm, which is a sort of a small, or maybe a 38 revolver. But I really wanted to make it a big, powerful bang. But the problem being, it still needs to retain the fact that it's a small handgun, but it still needs to have some boom to it, some pow, some crunch. Well, you can just use a big cannon and a lot of other things like that, but then it really loses the tenor, the timbre, the vibe of that it's a small handgun. But you really want it to crack. One of the things you can immediately do is add a compressor with short attack and long release and all that. You know how to do that. But what if you really need it to be beefy? Well, we always want to jump into layering. And layering sound effects is, when we get to the effects volume in a couple of months probably, we'll really make that, we'll really be jumping into that a lot. But Magic Attack is something that I've coined for changing the beginning of the attack of something, like by milliseconds, by not much at all, in order to create an attack that is, well, Hollywood unreal, but then blending it into the actual sound that has your brain go, oh yes, that's a 38 special, not a hand cannon or some giant thing. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is get some sound effects. So let's do that. I'm going to whip open my top secret library of sound effects here. Oh, let's see, where is that? It's here, sound effects. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, hey, how do you search for sound effects? Well, do you have a special library thing? I mean, a lot of guys do. I just have these organized in such a way, mostly, that I just use the built-in Windows Finder, whatever. So let's see here. Let's go 38, and we're under sound effects. 38 car skids. How about 38 gun? Gun, pistol, caliber cocking, dry firing, hand Foley. 357, that's going to be, let's see, 38, chamber lock, dry fire, safety on. I'm just doing this shot interior shooting range. That might be interesting. What's this? Yeah, that'll work. And that came out of the, that came out of the interior speakers here. So we're just going to make a bunch of new tracks. We're going to go track. We're going to add some stereo tracks. That's Option or Alt A for me. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to assign them correctly. They should be all going to the master fader, which they are. Okay, great. Let's start up here with this one. I'm just going to drag this in, shooting range. Hi. I'll make a marker here just in case I get lost. And what have I got? Cool. Hello. Nice. And it has a pretty significant reverb on it, which is cool. In fact, how loud is that? It's pretty loud. I'll turn it up just a little bit. And what we'll probably do is give it a little compression. We like this. We're going to go to the single band compressor. I'm going to make this, put this onto a loop so I don't have to keep having to hit play a bunch of times. There we go. And the loop is on. That's down here, this thing here. So the idea is we want to have a pretty strong ratio here, about 6:1, maybe higher. The release can be 50 milliseconds or so, and this attack is going to be somewhat slow. And then as we bring the threshold down, it gets snappier. So it's obviously way too much, but it gives us a good barometer from which we can take a look at where this attack might want to go. So here's a 50 millisecond attack. Here's a 25. And here's a 0. We definitely don't want that one. It's killing the attack altogether. So let's see just a few milliseconds. Ooh, yeah. 10, maybe 7 milliseconds. And we'll shorten the attack to 25 milliseconds. That's pretty juicy. Got it all. Snap to it. Cool. And we turn it off. See, that didn't feel so good? Kind of feels... Turn it back on. Pow! You also get the feeling that there's a little low frequency action in there, which is kind of cool. I'm a little concerned because I'm already hitting my limiter, trying to make this loud enough to be heard. Let's see here. Oh, maybe I'm not. Oh, yeah, I am. Okay. Why is that? Well, maybe turn up your speakers a little bit, and I'll try to not talk so loud, just because I want to overload the stream here. All right, so we've got a lovely 37, 38, whatever it takes, 38 special in a room that we like. We want to add some beef to it, some power. And one of the first things that we can do is kind of think of it from low frequencies to high frequencies. And one of the nice things that it's almost always a passive addition to any kind of attack, including punches and slaps, is a bass drum, like a pop music bass drum kind of action. Sound miner, yeah, I knew someone was going to ask me about sound miner. I never do. I don't use any of that. I just use it's quick. By the time I've spent the hours to learn sound miner, and then to have all my sounds, most of which are not compatible with sound miner because they're older and I've customized them myself. By the time I've done all that, it's just, as long as the file names are right, and if the file names aren't right, I'm screwed, so I got to go through and do that. But hopefully the file names are good enough where I can just search and go, here's a bunch of 38 specials that I can find. I just almost never run into a problem as long as the file names are right. But I mean, I know a lot of guys do, and I mean, that's great. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I just didn't want to invest in that. So, and I don't do sound effects all that often to make me want to go. Like guys who do this every day, all day, yeah, they probably want to use Sound Miner or one of these other ones. But so bass drum. Let's find ourselves a bass drum. Let's see how we do here. And by bass drum, I mean something that's really snappy. Bass drum cymbal hit. How's this? Not that. Bass drum impact. We want something that's really kind of not a boom, but something that's a boom, you know, like something like that. Drum hi-hat with bass drum. I don't want the high frequencies. Eerie, slow bass drum hits. No. Rim shot. Concert bass drum. We don't want. Drum bass. Oh, that's interesting. Is that a loop? No. Lo-fi bass drum. How about this one? No. How about this one? Nah. Let's just try BD. See if that brings me what I want. Punch body. Ooh, we might want to use that anyway. Ooh, that's a lovely find. How about this one? Ooh, that's actually the sound. We'll use it. I'm going to use both of these because I love them. Look at the low frequency waveform on these. So exciting. All right. These will work just fine. I haven't auditioned any of this before. I'm just doing this live, right here in River City. So we're going to line up this punch to the body and the, what is this, another punch to the body. They're very different sounding. We're going to put these in here like this. Look at that low frequency. That's so awesome. Now, both of these have a little wind up. They have like a to them. In fact, let's just solo them. I'm talking to you like you've heard them for real, but you have not. Right? There's that one. And here's this one. Pretty cool. Let's deal with this one first. So, we always want to cut our sounds so that they're as close to the attack as possible for this kind of thing, because the magic attack that I'm referring to really is only going to last for 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 milliseconds worth of time. So we're going to do a little crossfade here because you can see I was cutting into the waveform. See how the waveform actually crosses the 0 threshold right here, and that's going to take too long, so I want it to be about here. I'm going to line this up right about there. Let's see how that lines up. Mute this one for a second. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one. We're just going to drag this. I don't want that kind of wind up, just a little bit of the punch. Like so. Just about like this. And let's see how they all do together now. Okay, I'm really zoomed in. Cool. If I mute them, here's what it used to sound like. Here's what it sounds like with this first body punch, which is cool. Here's what it sounds like with the other one. A little more kind of with the low frequencies and all together. Right? And that doesn't take away from the small sound of the 38 at all. It still feels like, you know, it still feels like a small gun. It just got more thump to it. And when we get to mix these together in a second, we'll probably bring those down just a little bit. But there's no reason to do any official magic attack kind of stuff here. We're just adding some low frequency juice, and that's fine. Now let's see. What else do I want to add? I probably want to add a little bit higher caliber weapon to this. You know, maybe an AR-15. So to get a little more crack, because the room that we have from the 38, that inside the shooting range, whatever, is nice. I don't want to add to that, but I do want to get some more mid-rangey body. And if you know anything about firearms, you know the bigger the caliber, that more mid-range body sort of shows up. So let's go find ourselves some AR-15. See, AR-15. Under sound effects, here's this one. That's got too much room. That's good. That's good. How about this? Actually, that one might work. We're gonna cut the reverb off because that's, like, you know, totally not cool. Sample rate does not match. Yes, don't ever tell me that again. Make a copy, make it right. Okay, here we go. So there's the attack. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to line this up with the attack and cut off the head. You're really being weird to me right now. There we go. We're going to cut this off. And do a little fade, because again, we're cutting it in the middle of a you know, where the waveform had already jumped, and that's not only is it hard on our speakers, but it's oops, didn't mean to do that. It's just, it sometimes can make a tick, which is a drag. Did I just turn this off? Yes, don't do that. Mute. There we go. Let's see how this sounds now. Yeah. I like it. It gives me what I want. And we're going to take off this tail. And we're going to employ 2 ways of doing that. Wow, this is a long tail. Okay, we're just going to take the edit process first, chop off that end. And then we're going to do, as you might have guessed, use the fade command. Move over. There you go. I want it to be real short. And we're going to use the convex cave, never the concave fade, not the convex cave. Concave. There we go. Maybe not quite long enough. There we go. Sure. Okay, the other thing I want to do is, because it's sort of flubby, it's kind of like, which is lousy. We want to do that thing that we were doing earlier. We're going to go to Effects. Show me the effects rack, and we're just going to do on track effects. Do notice that over here you have clip effects and track effects, which are very different. And if you want to put it on a whole track, you would do this. Since we're just doing one clip, I could do clip, but I'm just a track kind of guy. So we're going to do tracks. We're going to say the same thing, single band compressor. We're going to put this into loop just so I don't have to keep hitting play. Do the same kind of thing, like a 6-to-1 or higher, maybe that 8 millisecond attack with a 25 millisecond release and a very strong threshold. There we go. There. With it off, with it on. You can feel the difference, right? It's just like much stronger. What do I got here? Hey, Jin. Me neither anymore. I used to have a license years ago. Thanks for being honesty. Yes, I am all honesty. Well, most of the time. But thank you. Yeah, it's, you know, when I used to work with Frank Serafini, may he rest very well, he swore by SoundMiner, and I never really saw any use for it for myself, but okay. Much sharper. Let's put these all together. Let's remember what the original sounded like. There it is. Let's add that to the AR-15. I don't know if you can hear the difference, but with just the 38 with the AR, hear how it has an unusual punch to it, mid-range. It's there. It's very, very short. We can extend it. It starts changing the nature of the 38, though. Right? You can hear it's got a little bit more of a weird expansion to it. So we're going to keep this short. We're going to add the bass in. I'm just going to unsolo these. They're way too loud. Let's just drop these by about 6 decibels or so. Still way too loud. Bring them down 12 decibels. Still way too loud. 15 decibels. There we go. And let's see. If we turn off the AR-15 for a second. Turn it back on. Off. On. Now what's happening too, if you've got headphones on or listening on really good speakers, is that the AR-15 is super wide and the 38 is super narrow. So stereophonically. So what could help is to try to blend them in together, is take a little of that stereo-ness out of the AR-15, make it a little more mono, which is very easy to do. We can happily and easily do that in the effects window. We're going to go to Special, Stereo Imagery, Stereo Expander, and ironically the stereo expander that we're going to use it to unstereo expand. And if you look here, you can see that's mono, and up here is uber wide. We just want it to be at mono. And now, because I am streaming and I zoomed in, it will freak out for a moment. Please hold. Okay, here we go. Now with it in mono, it's much more blended. If we go super wide, it sounds like some weird effect, right? But we just want to bring it down about 50%. And now it's in line with everybody else. All right. So now let's add even a bigger caliber. I mean, maybe not even a small arms thing. Let's find something that's maybe a howitzer or something that's going to give us a real powerful, punchy attack. And even though the sound may not quite have the attack we want, now we know with a compressor we can solve that. Let's see. Howitzer. Howitzer artillery cannon fire. Let's see. Ooh, aiming. Cool. Load, explosion, cannon fire. Let's see. I may not. Oh, 4 shots. How about this one? from the good old Hollywood Sound Ideas library from 8 million years ago. Let's just try Canon. Is it? See, it's 3 ends, right, with the regular Canon? Oh, I love this one. Not what I'm looking for, but it's so cool. Multiple cannon fire. That first one might be great. Let's see. I'm going to dump it in here. I know, everybody's mad. Come over here. This first one right here. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to drop this in. This is the fast way of doing it. And I've cut it off just a little too far. Oh, move down. Here, cut this to here. We're going to give ourselves a little fadey fade just to there. How does this sound now? Cute. Oh, that'll be great. We're going to get rid of the rest of this because I'm never going to use it. In fact, we're going to make this so short it doesn't even matter almost. Cool. Big beefy sound. And we're going to do with this the same thing that we did with the AR-15, about the same length. We're going to click on it. We're going to give ourselves a nice fade. Yep, like that. And you can tell already that it's also super stereophonic. But before we deal with the stereo, we're going to deal with the compression of it. Single band compressor. And I'm just going to add in the stereo imagery, stereo expander, bring it down to 50 already. We're going to do probably with this one an 8-to-1, that's my guess, an 8 millisecond attack with a 25 millisecond release. We're going to go into loop. I'm really cranking on this. Maybe 6 is good. And what else I'm going to do, now that we've got the stereo expander right, we're going to add a little EQ. We're going to help the low frequencies out just a little bit on the shelf. Just a little bit, like 8 decibels worth, Mark. That's not a little bit, buddy, but okay. And notice I did the EQ after the compressor. But Mark, you always say to put the EQ before the compressor. Yes, I know, and it's usually good practice. But if I add bass to a compressor before the compressor, I mean to the sound before the compressor, then the compressor just gets crushy on the bass, right? It just wants to make everything else, because the bass has so much energy, it wants to work even harder at crushing everything. And I don't actually end up getting more bass. All I end up getting is overall more compression. So if I do the standard compression and then EQ after it, I'm actually adding that low bass kind of free of any of the compressor artifacts that might happen, and then we get a nice bulbous, round bass frequency. Let's see. Confade Cave. Yeah, exactly, Pedro. Jin, what are you asking? Cannonball Howitzer M101, 105 cannon, single shot. Did we look at that? Where did you see that? Oh, that was probably on the howitzer. Let me just go back. Maybe you saw something I didn't. Howitzer. Where did you see that? It's this one. Oh, yeah. That's the cartoon one. It's way too lo-fi. That's why. It's like from a library from the 1980s. It's kind of... But anyway. Okay, so good observation. Let's check it out. Cool. Lots of bass, lots of junk. Let's add it to the 38. Let's take it out for a second, just the 38. Add it. In fact, I may make this a little bit longer. It is so cool, that cannon. I don't think anybody will get mad if I just do this. Maybe even longer. Oh, I can't get, because there's another hit here. All right, well, we can go to about here. Cool. And then if we took it off, just 38. I mean, it's night and day. Let's listen to that different than the punch body low frequencies. See how they kind of have a nice mid-range, like, 200 hertz-y thing with some extra high frequencies, which is cool. And then we're going to put them all together. which is cool. All right, so what am I hearing? Oh, this is okay. Am I hearing a weird thing from this? Oh, there's a whoosh. All right, so that whoosh, I don't like. I don't like the whoosh. So we're going to use back to the parametric EQ. Some of you already know what we're going to do. We're just going to add a little low-pass filter. Very easy, 12 decibels per octave. Kind of go like this. Maybe not that hard. Just enough to get rid of the wheeze. That'll do. And keep our low-frequency bang. So, some people would be like, well, that's cool, you could stop there. And of course we could, because that's a huge enhancement. But what happens if we take the 38 out altogether? What are we left with, these extra bits? That's what we added, which has an interesting kind of vibe to it already. So what happens if I take out only a couple of milliseconds of the 38 and let these guys live for a moment and then have the 38 come in just after? What happens is we have a completely artificial attack and then a completely reasonable 38 continuance. So let's try that. I'm not saying it's going to be better, but it's something to try. So a few milliseconds looks like, what, down here? Are you going to lie to me about the duration? You're not going to tell me. Okay, that's tragic. My guess is this is going to be just as far as we want to go. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to unmute this, but I'm going to mute this part of the clip. And then I'm going to click here and just fade this in briefly. Now, the opening attack is not the 38 at all. It's everybody else, followed by the 38. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, so it's really hard for me to A/B this, so what I'm going to do is make another track. Add mono audio track, like so. Actually, what I should have done was duplicate. Let's undo here, duplicate, select a track. Boom. Hey, it even gives me the cool stuff of all of the clippage. So, don't do that. Zoom where I want you to go. And we're going to restore this as though we hadn't done anything. Please behave. There. So this is now the originale. And this is the cut version of the attack. So this is the no attack version. And this is the with the attack version. In fact, let's make it even more. That's so subtle. Let's make it even more. Oh. Even more delay. Something like this. Cool. So this is a pretty significant delay. I mean, that whole attack is now no longer there. And with it back in. It's there. You hear the little bit of a crackiness. And if we turn it up a little bit more here, let's see here, to emphasize it. There is the 38 louder. Let's go back to the cutout. But notice how cool that is, that you've got a non-38 gigantic sound attack, and then the 38 comes in, as opposed to just the same old thing that we're used to hearing. And of course, you can leverage this if you want. Turn down the 38 a little bit, turn up the AR-15 a little bit, turn up the Canon a little bit. Maybe bring the 38 back now. That's juicy as opposed to this, which is very 38 heavy. Both are great, but notice the difference, right? And this is the beauty of having a magic attack. Now, there's one more thing we can do. Very exciting. If we go to the mixer, here's all of our tracks. They're all just here. In fact, let me move this one over. Well, let's just use the magic attack version. So it's all these guys. Let's make ourselves a new bus. Oops. Oh, I'm way over here. There we go, track 11. I'm going to select track 11. I'm going to make a stereo bus. We're going to call this gun bus. I'm going to assign the output of each one of these channels to the gun bus. And some of you already know what I'm going to do, but for those of you who don't, it's going to be a lovely surprise. Oh, we got one more to go. This one here. Notice now, all of these are showing up, all of these tracks are now showing up here on the gun bus, which is being massively overloaded, as you might imagine. Bang. So let's add, I'm going to select this and go over here to the track effects. Let's add an EQ. Let's add a compressor. Single band. And let's do it all again, except this time I'm going to enhance. Now what I'm doing is I'm enhancing all of the channels all at once. Parametric EQ. Let me go back to my loopage, so I don't have to keep hitting play. You guys are going to go crazy, but oh well. It's a living. Here we go. Give ourselves some 2K just to make it ornery. Maybe some 150. And then notice the EQ is now before, because I want to drive this compressor. We'll give it a 6:1, same kind of thing, maybe even a faster attack. How about a 5 millisecond with a 15 millisecond release, and drop this threshold. Oops, long slider. There. A little bit slower release. Oh, attack rather. There we go. Pretty cool. Now that's a pretty juicy 38 special sound that still retains the sound of the 38, but is so much more. And it's the beauty of what we've done is layering, just simple layering, intelligent layering, but simple nonetheless. Magic attack, where we've taken a new attack and taken a few milliseconds of attack and replaced the original attack with something big and bulbous, or big, just generally big. And then the stuff that you're going to learn tons and tons and tons about in the mix section, which is compression, and how compression can snap things up with a short attack, a short release, strong ratio, and a very low threshold to really mash on things. Notice I didn't use a multi-band compressor because that would further change the sound in a way that wouldn't give me the kind of aggressive change to the sound that I really wanted in that single band compressor. So again, just, you know, simple things. And if I take out the 38 altogether, I've got another really cool sound. I mean, that's pretty cool. And if I just take the AR-15, which is what's making that weird noise, and extend it, it's a pretty weird sound. I mean, there's a sound there for you, and that's just what we added to that 38. So let me see what's going on here. Jin, when using low impact or whooshes, how do you treat them in terms of metering? Metering. I don't know what you mean by metering. Like how the LEDs work metering, or do you mean how loud they should be? One of the things, and I got 15 minutes left, that we're going to get into is the beauty of 32-bit float digital audio workstations. And we always say, don't go over zero, don't go over zero. And you've been looking at my meters here, you know, and you're like, man, that's going to the red. That channel's going to the red. Oh, that one's going to the red. As long as you're within your digital audio workstation, you don't really have to worry about going over like we used to have to do in 24-bit, or please God, no 16-bit digital audio workstations like Pro Tools used to be, or 24-bit. With 32-bit, I mean, you can go way, way, way over. in an individual channel or bus and really receive no penalty, no distortion. Now, a lot of people will argue with you about that, and really you shouldn't go over 0 on any of your channels because you may run aground on some plugin in your chain that's not 32-bit float, although there's very few that that are not anymore, but you could, and then you're going to get distortion. When you output, that has to not be over 0. But within the digital audio workstation, I don't really even worry too much about going over 0 within. You'll notice that some reverbs are very, very picky about going over 0 on their inputs. And some plugins generally, even though they're 32-bit compatible, don't want to see over 0, especially Waves plugins. We have to be very careful with Waves audio plugins that we don't go over 0 on them. But in your digital audio workstation, I can't think of one that gets mad or upset by a channel going over 0. You just are not going to hear it because of the nature of the mathematics in 32-bit float, which is what I want to demonstrate for you why when we export our stems from acts or reels that we want to export in 32-bit float. I've never said this before until Jody brought this up a couple days ago or whenever it was. Very important. Let me just double check. Oh, loudness. Yeah, so hopefully that answers you. Loudness, I don't know. Just don't go over 0 on your master output. If you're asking me what your master output should be, that's like asking how long is a piece of string. There's no really good single answer because it depends on your delivery, whether you're doing cinema, DVD, Blu-ray, internet, institutional, corporate. I mean, there's just all kinds of delivery, television for goodness sake, that require you to be at a different loudness. And some of them are legal and mandated, and you must follow them, or you can go to jail. So, not that they'd let you go to jail, they just reject your master, but you get the idea. So, you know, if you know what kind of output you're looking for, just say so and I'll answer it. But we're going to jump to the last thing that I want to do. And let me show you what I've got rolling here for you. Let's just close out of all of this. No, I'm not going to save it. We have it on the wonders of YouTube. Okay, we're going to go to Reels. What I've done is this ubiquitous session that I've been using from the beginning with Blade of Honor stuck in it with its stems. I've cut it into 3 reels. Now, obviously, these are just stems. These wouldn't be a whole mix. Your whole mix will be looking much different, right? Hundreds of tracks or 50 tracks or 80 or whatever. But this will suffice for the purpose of dealing with broken out reels. How do we export them? How do we route them? And how do we get them where we want to go? It takes a while to open this. I don't know why, but it does. And just for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, when you have a long project, a feature or something, you're going to end up with a lot of dialogue channels, predominantly dialogue channels, because every room and every actor has to have their own ambience, their own EQ settings, their own basic grade if you're doing that, and you should. And then they move into another room, a whole new set of tracks, because they have a different ambience or a different thing. They move to a different scene, different microphones, different. I mean, you're going to have, in a feature, you may have 200 dialogue tracks, just dialogue tracks, maybe more. And that becomes untenable. And it's one of the reasons why, and certainly on computer resources and busing, you have to bust all these reverbs and surround reverbs and all this. Too much. So we break them into reels so that it's much more, you know, you can deal with it a lot better. Well, what we do is you break them into reels in the nonlinear editor, in Premiere Pro or whatever your nonlinear editor is. You, in this case, would dynamically link, which we've shown you before, how to the audio to Audition in reels. So here's reel 1, here's reel 2, and you know, reels are, I don't know, 12 to 15, maybe sometimes 20 minutes long. Totally tenable with what we're talking about. So it comes over, now you got reel 1 session, reel 2 session, reel 3 session, reel 4 session. What I like to do is break up the reels myself. And the reason I like to do that is because then I can set up the whole session. I can organize all the dialogue, all the sound effects, Foley, ambiences, music, busing, general ways to start reverb, get a general 2-hour organized session, and then I break it into reels as long as everybody agrees where the reels go. Or if the timeline that the editor's using is not broken into reels, nobody cares, because ultimately I'm going to deliver a one long piece. So I like to break it up. But if you can't, and it's coming to you, you're putting all of your audio into these reels that are coming from the nonlinear editor. You're copying it into your template like we showed you how to do a few weeks ago. And then you've got these reels. You do your mix. It sounds great. You balance to the, the nominal level of whatever your deliverable is. And then you export. Well, how do you export? Right. Let's do that. Okay. So I've got, again, these stems. Let me scroll up. Oh, this is actually the session that I broke up. So here is reel 1, reel 2, reel 3. From here, I've put in 2 pops, and I've already exported reel 2 and reel 3 because you don't need to see me do it 3 times. So let's open, in fact, let's just close all one more time. We're going to open reel 3. It's important to put those 2 pops in. What's a 2 pop? It means that 2 seconds before and after the beginning of picture, you have a 1 frame, 1000 hertz tone, and ideally a hit in the picture that the editors put in. And you do this for every reel. Once you get those reels, once you get those 2 pops in and you export them, then you know where everything should line up theoretically, especially if you know, hey, here's where the reel starts, here's where the reels end. And unfortunately, I know that I've forgotten to write that part down. But anyway, so here's reel 3. And if I zoom in, you can see what I'm talking about here. Here's a 2 pop. Just right here. Let me make sure this is routed correctly. It is. There's a 2 pop, and we're in. And you're like, man, that has a really hard in. Well, yes, it does, but we're going to fix that when we do the assembly. 2 pop, and then we're in. We go to the end. 2 pop at the end. Dead space, dead space, dead space, but theoretically the picture's still going, and 2 seconds after the end of picture, so we make sure we don't have any drift. All right, great. So, and it looks like I'm not going to have time to do all this, but hopefully this will get you an idea. What I do, and this is just the beginning of the next reel, and this actually is happening on a scene cut, bang, right? So what I'm going to do is extend the audio of this all the way to the 2 pop, or close thereof, certainly long before I would have to make the actual cut. I also need to write down, because I'm going to forget this, what frame this is. I didn't write it down. Right. It is down here, by the way, in case you didn't know. That's 1 hour, 11 minutes, 57 seconds in 1 frame. Is the 2 pop. Means 2 seconds before. 1:11:57:01. That means that the edit is actually going to happen at 1:11:59:01. Yeah, we're good? 2 seconds. Because this is not where the cut is. This just shows me where it starts, where the reel should begin 2 seconds later. 2 seconds before is where the 2 pop is. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. We're going to zoom back out. Now, how do we export from, I almost said Logic. How do we export this from Adobe Audition? Very simply. You take all of your tracks, and if this is a single session, in other words, it starts at the beginning, which this one doesn't, but if it started at the beginning, you just say, hey, start from the beginning. Because you've got your 2 pops are in there, you don't have to worry about time code, you know you've written down where the 2 pops should go, and then you've got everything. So in my case, because it's not an official session, but you get the idea, I'm going to just drag select these stems. Okay, not the video, just the stems. These also have included the 2 pops at the front and the back. Have I not? Am I seeing them? What happened to them? Why have I lost them? Oh, I didn't lose them. I butted them up. I didn't know where they went. That's because I butted the audio up against them. And they look like the exact same thing. They're so close. They don't look like these at all. All right, we're going to do this again. So drag select. I'm going to go to File, Export, Multi-Track Mixdown. And while you can do a time selection with a time tool, I just really want the 2 pop to be at the front of my file. So I don't have to go cutting off anything. I just know that wherever I drop the files that I'm about to make, is where the 2 pop goes. I'm going to say selected clips. That means it's going to run this export from whatever I have selected in the timeline. I go bang. Cool. Here's what we're going to call it. BOH Reel 3 Mixdown AIF. Here's where I'm going to put it. I'm just going to double check that it's going to go to the right place. Yeah, no, it won't. We want to put it here. Oh, I need to make a folder. This is going to be Reel 3 exports. That's where it's going to go. The next thing I want to look at here is bit depth 32 instead of, oh my Lord, 8 bits. You know, I always say 24 bits is great, and it is. But when we're doing exports from reels, we're not doing a true export where we're making a master. We're doing, for lack of a better term, an inter-program export, almost as if you were sending it down another bus, only this bus happens to be it's going into a file and then coming back into another session. So we don't want to truncate any of the bits. We don't want the program to sit there and go, oh, well, we'll figure out how to make it 24-bit. Now, look, 24 bit's great, but in a 32-bit float digital audio workstation, it is truncating the top 8 bits that you're using, again, like I talked about earlier, so that you can go over 0 in channels and have better mathematics with the plugins, making them sound better. It's creating all of that, but if you do 24 bits, that gets cut off and just kind of dithered, is what we call it, into a good master. Great for a master, but not good if I need to do more editing to the file again, which I am, right? We're going to put it in, we're going to do crossfades, we're going to maybe have to massage the volume. I hope not, but sometimes you do between reels. And who knows what else. So we want to keep 32-bit float our selection when we're doing exporting of reels that are then going to be reassembled. Nothing else needs to worry about except 48K. We want that. Now watch this. I have an AIF. There's 32-bit floating. Yay. Great. IE is fine, not integer. But what happens if I say, oh, well, I'm not a Mac guy. I want to use Wave. I'm going to use Wave. Look what happens. If I go back here, oh, it's doing 32-bit now. Isn't that nice? It didn't do it for me before. How funny. Never mind. It works with Wave. I couldn't get it to do this. It would only let me do 24-bit. So apparently you can. I'm going to use AIF because the other ones were AIF. And after all, I'm a Mac guy. 32-bit, source channels, 48 kilohertz, 32-bit, uncompressed, stereo. Okay, now I have the stems of each of these, as you should have in your sessions, routed to buses. Like all your dialogue tracks should be routed to a single bus. Not only is it smart to do and for organization, but it gives you the opportunity to EQ or compress or change the volume of all of your dialogue tracks all at once on a single bus. Sound effects, music, however you want to divvy all that up. In fact, the more buses that you have control over that in this way, the better off it is. If you just say, hey, burn this, what you're going to get is a stereo output. Terrible. In fact, in this case, you'd hear nothing because I'm running 5.1. Turn that off. You can do independent tracks, the dialogue track, the sound effects track, the MX track, but what if you've got automation on the buses or EQ? None of that will print. You want to go to bus and do these buses. Dialogue, sound effects, MX, music. That's what I have set up right now. Now it's going to burn in 5.1, because these are 5.1 buses, 3 5.1 bits at this length. So this might take a little while, but even though it's 7 o'clock, we might be able to jump in on this next week. But there's the spinning ball of doom. Oh, there it goes. Cool. All right, 1 minute, 1 second. That's not too bad. Not too bad at all. Any questions? No, not yet. Cool. So while we do this, what we're going to do is assemble. I'm just going to do Reel 2 and Reel 3, just so you can kind of, it'll take too much time to do all of it. But you're going to basically make a new 5.1 session, and you're going to assemble all of your reels, and you're going to make sure that they all butt together and use slight crossfades. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be a small edit point at the juncture point, but if you get the crossfade right, no one will notice. It's fine. We do this all the time, and everything will be all right. You do make sure, and this is where you're going to do your final loudness test in a loudness radar in Adobe Audition if you want, or whatever program you're using to make sure you're legal, if that's of import. And from here, you do your final stems. And this is one of the reasons why it's important to have as many stems as possible, because what if you need dialogue only? Well, what if you need Foley only? And you did, oh, a sound effects stem. Well, it's all blended in. You can't do anything about it. So for now, dialogue, sound effects, and MX are what we have. We're going to close this session. No, thank you. And we're going to make a new session, multi-track. Look at 32-bit float, 5.1, 48K. We love it. This is going to be called, actually, let's make sure we're putting this in the right place. Yes, it is. We're calling this Real Assembly. This is the real assembly, not the fake assembly. Now, unfortunately, it's given me a bunch of stereo tracks. Boo hiss. We don't like that because we've made 5.1 tracks. So we're going to delete. That's Option, Alt, Command, Control, Delete. Gong, 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 gong. I'm leaving 1. And then we're going to add 5.1 audio track, another 5.1 audio track, and another 5.1 audio track, and a 5.1 audio bus. Guess why? Because we're going to bus all of these to a bus just in case we need to finesse all of them at once. No problemo. Oh, I can get rid of this stereo nonsense, can't I? Goodbye. Here, we're going to go bus, bus A. Bus, bus A, bus, bus A. It's called bus A because I forgot to label it. Final, print, master. This is now going to the master over here, which is super dope. Now we simply bring in our files and the movie. And I'm just going to bring in Reel 2 and Reel 3 for now, which is located in the fine place. Here, Reel 2 export. Here is the, let's get rid of this, the Reel 2 dialogue. Look at how it comes in 5.1. Look how dope that is. The Reel 2 sound effects. And then the Reel 2 MX. Cool. And then we're going to zoom over here to the end. I believe Reel 3 exports is the next file. Downloads. MX, sound effects. Awesome. We're going to line these up like so. There it is. Oh, we should route it to the stream. Hi. Notice that that it's in there, that 2-pop is at the beginning of this file. Super dope. And we have all that roll in from before where we moved it over. And you're like, but Mark, your time code's all messed up. Oh no, you're right. It's not the same time code. What'll we do? Well, hopefully there's a 2-pop out on this one, right? Oh, there is. Well, thank goodness for that. What that means is that I have a 2-second out from over here. Yeah, because it's a 2-second out from where it ended. And a 2-second in from over here. Now in Audition, because it's not exactly frame accurate, it's a little bit difficult to do. But what we will do is we're going to chop 2 seconds in from Reel 2 and chop 2 seconds up from the beginning of Reel 3, and they should butt together. Excuse my French, but. Here we go. This ends roughly... And remember, we can never trust the scrub in Adobe Audition, only our eyeballs on frames. Here we go. This looks like it's 5:30:23, which means at 5:28:23 should be our out. 5:28:23. Just about there. We cut. That's 2 seconds from the 2-pop. And then we go here. Actually, you know what? That's not correct. That's 2 seconds in a frame from the 2-pop. Sorry, because the 2-pop is a frame long. Some of you are like, dude, it's a frame. So it's 22. Let's zoom in a little bit more. You know, if you've never done this before, it's terrifying because you're like, I'm cutting into the master of all stems. It's true. And now we do the same thing over here. A little mathematical movement. Come on, zoom out. There we go. Make sure we got this right. Look at this. You can even see the 2-pop, how nice that is. This is right now sitting at 532.07, which means it should be, yeah, actually it works this way. The length of it works correctly for the 2-pop. So this should be 534.07. 534.07. I'm going to cut. I'm going to get rid of it. We're going to go bang, bang, bang. I believe if I delete this way, no, it's not going to behave for me. Nope. My key commands. I was hoping I could jump it all together, but it's not working. Again, I haven't healed my key commands back yet. So theoretically, this should butt. Which it does.
Oh, wait.
And you're like, Mark, there's a bump in there. Yes, there is. It's ugly, isn't it? We hate that. How do we solve it? Who knows? No, see, the music is crossing over, right? The music's just cutting over all over the place, isn't it? Right in the middle of it, right in the middle of the sound effects, right in the middle of the ambiences, right in the middle of all of it. Doesn't matter what's happening in the picture. So what do we do? Well, first of all, there's no dialogue, so we don't have to. We know that that bump isn't happening here in the dialogue track. Let's just make sure. No, it's fine. Let's see where it is. Here in sound effects. Nope. So it's definitely the music track. Right. So what we're going to do is two ways of doing this. You can do it the I know how to use a crossfade way, or you can use it the pro way. The I know how to use a crossfade way is like this. We're going to just do a little crossfade. I'm just going to drag all of them over, and I made a little crossfade all at the same time, yeah? There's a little bit of a bump. Let's do a little bit more. There we go. No one's going to notice that. I'm sorry. No one's going to notice that. That's the I know how to use a crossfade way. The pro way is, since we have some handles, right? Basically 2 seconds or so-ish of handles. We can let these crossfade here, these two. There's not really a bump in the ambiences, and certainly there's no dialogue happening. But this music thing, as Jody noticed, is we're cutting right over the music. Lousy. And all the cuts happen to be happening at the same time. And if you had reels where there was dialogue over this, which, hey, probably choose a different reel point, or some significant sound effect, then they're going to bang at the same time. And that's just dumb. Here's the pro way. We still do crossfades. We just don't make the funny voice. We go like this. How far out can I go? Oops, we don't do that. Actually, what we should do is clip, lock in time. We should be locking all of these clips in time once they're locked. Yay, the lock symbol. Hooray. Let's see how far out this goes. Now, I've got music cutting at a different point than all the other stems. In fact, we can extend this this crossfade to ensure that the strings don't go, which is what they're doing now, which is fine. Now the crossfades, you've interleaved the crossfades in between the stems. And believe me, that makes a big difference. One of the things, if it was a real problem and just nothing you did, there was a real issue, or you had a diva who was the director or somebody who was like, you're cutting in the middle of the music. You can actually bring the music cue stems into this session and just create a band of music stem tracks. You'll have to do a little massaging on the mix again, but if it just isn't cutting, it's just not working, and you're just going to have to bring that in. The next easiest thing to do is to create a gigantic, maybe a 30-second handle between the outgoing reel and the incoming reel, which is no big deal. And then you've just got a lot of crossfade points from which you can make these edits happen. Then from here, let's imagine for a moment that I've got all the reels assembled. From here, I should just do this. I'm waiting for this keystroke thing to work. We've created the 2-pop again at the front so that we have a sync master, because usually now what's happening is you're exporting it, it's going to go to the post house, and then they're going to line everything up and do the masters. But if not, then you don't have to do that. You're going to give yourself 1 second of leader, or whatever's required, and that leader is just blank space with the picture and with the sound, and hopefully they're in sync. And you're going to export your files this way, with no two pops or anything like that, not at the end, not at the front, because hopefully by now everything's in sync. You've checked it. You're going to take away the two pops. You're going to line everything up so that it's 1 second. But your master, and this is where people kind of lose their shorts and lose their mind. The 5.1 master is never going to go back to Adobe Premiere. That's always going to be separate. Your AC3 files, your independent 5.1s, all that's going to be, never go back to Premiere. Shouldn't. Because there's no movie file format that I know of, any professional standard, that's going to want to see a 5.1 or greater audio file embedded into a movie file. That's always going to be separate. Same with the DCP. The DCP wants to see independent audio files and independent video tracks. Now you can, of course, bring in your stereo master, which you can totally do, back into Premiere, and you probably should do. So your question is, well, how do I get this stuff out? Well, the good news is this, and we talk about this in the education a lot. Here's your final master, right? And what you can do is, I forget exactly the way we did this, but to make a down mix to stereo, we use, that is my brain, or did they move it? It is mastering loudness. Here's me putting my teeth to pavement. Why I can't find it in here. Channel mixer, there it is. It's a bad place to put this thing. And here is where is my plugin in here anymore? No. Here's where you say, dumb all these channels down to stereo, and that's how you do it. Of course, you would do it on a stereo, a stereo track like so. Add stereo audio bus. This is the stereo down mix. You're going to send this to bus stereo down mix. You're going to add, and actually what's interesting is that this shows up the way Audition's wired. It does this kind of for you whenever you go from 5.1 to stereo, even if you don't do the down mix plugin, but I like to do it. And it also sets me up so the pans are correct. Oh man, this is so weird. It's not doing what I want, but oh, you're making a liar out of me. That's all that's happening. Channel mixer, dumbed down. If I play, it is not doing it. I gotta remember how to do this. I haven't done this in a while. I promise you, it's in the education. I show you exactly how to do this, and it's also in the 5.1 education. Here we go. Bus. This goes to 5.1. You got me stumped now. I know it does it. I've done it a million times. It's just been about a year since I've had to do a down mix out. To export this whole thing, however, let me go like this. Oh, I'm already zoomed out. We don't have to do any selection or anything like that. Once you've got all of your things put together, it's just a simple matter of export, multi-track mix down, entire session, and now you're going to do whatever busing out that you need. And you can, theoretically route it so that you can have it all bounce out all at once, for example. If you want to have, so you've already got dialogue by itself, right? You've got sound effects, music by itself. You could create an M&E if you wanted by simply doing track, add stereo bus. Oh, not stereo bus, sorry. Track, add 5.1 bus. We're going to call this M and E. And now you're going to send everything but the dialogue there. Now if we solo it, we don't have dialogue, just effects and music. Super great, using busing. Pretty cool. Then to export, check it out, how cool this is. Multi-track export, center session. We know this is good. We're good here. We're not going to do 32-bit now. We're going to do 24-bit. Yes, we're going to go here. And then here's your 5.1 master output, which you'll definitely want to use. That's your whole mix in 5.1. And look at this, M&E. And here's what in essence is your dialogue out, your sound effects out, and your music out, which is down here, dialogue, sound effects, music. And you can bust this in such a way that you can just hit bang and have them all go out at once. Now, be warned. Adobe Audition doesn't multi-thread very well. So if you've got a big, powerful computer like I do with 24 cores, it's only going to use 2 or 3 of them to bounce it out, which is kind of a drag. I don't think it's ever going to get fixed. I don't think that's on their radar. I think there's an issue with doing that in the coding. So it's going to take a long time to bounce this thing out. But at least you can do it all at once, and in offline mode, it works pretty good. Pretty good. It works pretty good. Let me see what we got here. How do you deal with continuous music? Okay, well, hopefully that answered that, Jody. All right, we are way over time, and hopefully this has been a great session for you. This is the end of the edit session. Now, next week I'm going to be in Atlanta, so there will be no compression. We will not be meeting on Thursday night. And I'll send that out in the email that goes out, but there is no... I won't be here. You'll log in and go, why is this? Is it broken again? Is he late? No, I'm just not going to be here. So don't show up next Thursday, but the following, I'll be here. We will start the fix volume, which is going to be awesome, and we will have a massive amount of news for you at that point. So if you have any other questions, drop in. Oh, I'm so glad, Jody. I'm so glad it's helpful. Drop them in here while I just kind of start tearing things down. Thanks for the extra time. And those of you on the East Coast or Australia, or by God, if you're in Europe, thanks for staying up late. And have a great week, couple weeks. And if I don't see you before, hey, and if you're in Atlanta, let me know. We'll come hang out and have lunch. If I don't see you before, we'll see you in post. You know what I bet it is? I bet you an easy way to do this is just to go audio bus. We'll call this down mix. And then just go like this. That's all it is. And then, yeah, then it's just stereo. Simple. And then if I want to export, we'll call this DX, SFX, MX, export, multi-track, entire session. Here, that's the master. There's the tracks I want out individually. There's the down mix. There's the M&E. And do I have a final print master? Oh, I do, but I'm not using it. Oh, that's so cool. Done. Hey, Jody, what are you saying to me? Before I go, where can I find the 5-1 education you mentioned? I looked for it a while back, but couldn't find it. Oh, well, first of all, it's in Cinema Sound. All 26 hours of it. The last part was where we really delve into the 5 examples. Well, 4 of them are in 5.1. And we just hammer it to death until you get it. But the actual quick start guide, let me show you. I will show you. Misa show you. Misa show you. Yay, it's the Foley list of how we're doing. For only a moment. Cinema Sound. Store. Quick start guide to mixing in 5.1 and higher. Just there. Bang. My ugly mug. Which, believe it or not, is 20 pounds heavier than I am now. I've lost some weight. Whoa. So, there it is. Like so. And while I'm here, let's make sure everything else is still working. We've been working tirelessly on this new site. Oh, let's say this. So all of these are going to be available. All of the edit volume stuff that we just did on the symposium are going to be available for the next week. But starting, well, actually 2 weeks until I get back. But once we start the fixed volume, they're all going to come down just like Record did, and it's going to be a product to purchase. So be sure you download, so you have so you don't have to pay for this, because you've been with me live. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jerry. Thanks, Jody. Let's see here. I was embarrassed, man. I couldn't figure out how to do down mixing. Hello. Leave you with a little dubstep. And with that, everybody, have a great 2 weeks, and I'll see you then in 2 weeks, Thursday. I don't even remember what the date is. What is it? 8? Something like that, November. Well, 1st, 7th, 8th. You do the math. I think it's 8th. See you all later. Thanks so much.